So I guess we're just going to dive in. We'll talk about this Charlie Kirk preliminary hearing. And I'm sure everybody's been following this a little bit. I'm sure.
Hey, welcome in, guys. I want to go ahead and be listening to this motherfucker and playing some Castlevania. Nobody told me about this game. I just 35 years old. I'm just finding out about this. What the fuck? Come on, son. Hit that like and subscribe. Help me out.
We've heard a little bit about it. But this week began the preliminary hearing for Tyler Robinson, who is accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. Now, this is not the trial. The trial has not actually begun yet. This is a preliminary hearing, and this is where the state, the prosecution, presents its evidence that Tyler Robinson is the killer. And if the judge determines that there is sufficient evidence, then the trial will proceed after that. As of right now, Tyler Robinson has not entered a plea. So he has not pled guilty or not guilty. That will happen later. But so far, the state has been presenting their evidence that they have, their most compelling evidence. And this is all evidence that nobody has seen yet. Why is this significant?
Oh, hell no.
Because for the past 10 months, since September 10th, we have heard people online, specifically conspiracy theorists, saying, where's all the evidence? Where's all the evidence to support the government narrative that Tyler Robinson was the killer? Why is there not more evidence? Why are there not more camera angles and forensic evidence and physical evidence and so on?
Oh, level up, son.
And if you remember, if you recall correctly, in September 2025, a representative for the state came out in a press conference and said that Tyler Robinson, the accused, has due process rights like anybody else. The press said, where's the evidence? The public said, where's the evidence? And the state came forward and said, look, Tyler Robinson has due process rights under the Constitution. What does that mean? It means he has a right to a fair and speedy trial with a jury of his peers. Now, in order for the state to properly and fairly give Tyler Robinson a trial, that means they need to find a jury pool of people that are unbiased. And how does a person become biased? Well, they see a lot of the evidence. They see a lot or all of the evidence, and they come to some conclusions. So in other words, what the state said from the very beginning, this is not like something that came from Israel, okay, it didn't come from Turning Point USA. The state, whose job it is to prosecute him, said, look, we know you want evidence, but he's got due process rights. Translation, we're not going to hold the trial in the court of public opinion. We're not going to hold the trial in the media. We're not going to present all our evidence on a YouTube channel. They said, we are going to pick a jury. We are going to hold the trial. And at that point, only then will the state present its evidence. Will they make their case? But not until that happens. And so I remember everybody over the past 10 months has been pulling on every thread, leaving no stone unturned. Begging the question, rhetorical questions. What about this? What about that? What about the soil? The camera in the back? What about the video? All these different things. And what has taken place in this preliminary hearing is the prosecution is presenting evidence that we have not seen yet. They're showing evidence that only they could have through their law enforcement powers.
Oh, what the fuck?
And evidence that only they have seen. And what we've seen over the past 5 days is pretty damning. It's never before seen, and it's quite damning. They've got security footage of Tyler Robinson all over the campus, going to the campus 5 times in the hours leading up to and after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They got him dead to rights on multiple security cameras.
Yo, what happened to my sword?
They got him climbing up onto the roof and going into a prone position. They got him walking around limping, carrying the rifle in his pants. They have DNA evidence of him and Lance Twiggs on the rifle and on a towel that he brought to the roof. They recovered fragments of the bullet from Charlie Kirk's body, which match the description of a .30-06 coming from the rifle that shoots that type of round, which was left in the woods belonging to Tyler Robinson's grandfather. And they found, by the way, that the bullet inside of Charlie Kirk's body was totally destroyed. It was in 5 fragmented pieces and resembled a soft point bullet. This is exactly what happens. A lot of people had questions about the caliber of the bullet and where it entered and why there might not be an exit wound. They recovered the bullet. People said it might not even be a bullet. They said it might be some kind of palm pistol projectile, some sort of explosive fragmentation device from the microphone. They found the bullet. They found the bullet. It's in 5 pieces. You can see exactly what it looks like. They took photos of it. They have a written confession. They had the text messages pulled using software from Lance Twiggs' phone. They have photos of the note that was left confessing the crime. They have video of him being interrogated by the police multiple times and by the FBI. They have video of him turning himself in. And then on top of that, what happened today is that Lance Twiggs testified over video in court, and he said, Tyler Robinson left me a note, written, he texted me a confession, and then when he returned home, he confessed in person, cried, and then turned himself into the police. And this is a story from the Washington Post. It says, quote, a 23-year-old accused of killing Charlie Kirk confessed to his roommate shortly after the shooting and said he wished he had not done it, according to a video interview played in a Utah courtroom on Thursday. Prosecutors presented the recording as key evidence in a week-long preliminary hearing meant to determine whether the case against defendant Tyler Robinson can proceed to trial. Robinson confessed to the roommate over text shortly after the shooting, according to officials. He said, I had enough of Kirk's hatred. I just asked him in person if what he said was true the night before, and he said it was, said Twiggs. He started crying a little bit, said he wishes he hadn't done it. He kept going around and just doing stuff, I think, to keep himself busy. The defendant eventually said he would talk to his parents or turn himself over to authorities, said Twiggs. The former roommate also recounted discussing bullet engravings with Robinson about a month before the shooting. Robinson had said he was planning to go hunting with his family and asked Twiggs if they had a power tool to put messages on the bullets. After the shooting, law enforcement recovered bullets with messages such as, hey, fascist, catch, which were shown in court on Thursday. Robinson referenced the engravings in his text with Twiggs after Kirk's killing. Text with Twiggs after Kirk's killing. Interesting consonants there. Pictures of text messages displayed in court Thursday showed Robinson telling Twiggs to check under his keyboard for a handwritten note. The note read, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. Twiggs in the recorded interview said he had never heard Robinson talk about Kirk before the shooting, and also said they did not talk much about gender identity and LGBTQ rights. When Robinson did talk about politics, it was usually about Trump or current events. That's the only part to me that's a little bit suspicious, that they never talked about it. But aside from this, you look at everything that has been presented in the preliminary hearing, and this is the evidence. Like I said, you've got 4 or 5, I've seen it reported differently, 4 or 5 fragments of the bullet recovered from Charlie Kirk's body, and it resembles a .30-06 soft point bullet fired from the rifle that was recovered in the woods. You have DNA evidence of both Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs found on the roof where the shooting happened. You have security camera footage which places Tyler Robinson at the campus at the time of the assassination and in the hours leading up to it and afterward. You got text messages, photos of a handwritten note, Discord messages, and you have the testimony of Lance Twiggs himself. You've got interrogation of Tyler Robinson by police and by the FBI. The parents turned in Tyler Robinson and they believe that he's guilty. This is the evidence. Now, everything up until this point on the conspiracy side is basically theoretical. What were some of the conspiracy theories? Well, they said that once we see the footage from behind Charlie Kirk, there's a camera pointed at Charlie Kirk's back from behind him. They said we are going to find that actually the wound in the front was the exit wound because he was shot from behind. by a palm pistol, by an assassin sitting behind Charlie Kirk. You know, well, we got that. It didn't happen. We got that footage from behind Charlie Kirk. It revealed nothing. And then they said, well, why wasn't there an exit wound? Surely if it's a 30-06, I've seen what that does to a hog. That would never stop inside of his body. Well, then we saw the bullet itself, and it looks like a 30-06 bullet. Soft point.
Welcome in,
and
everybody.
they go in, and then they blow up inside the body when they encounter soft tissue, because lead is very soft. We have the bullet. They said there's an exploding lav mic. They said the reason that the physical evidence was potentially destroyed when the university paved over the site where Charlie Kirk was murdered is to conceal chemical evidence of explosive powder used in a microphone on Charlie Kirk's lapel, which blew up, and that was the real source of the... It was a bullet. A bullet was recovered. So there goes all the suspicions about repaving the area, whether it was a real bullet or not. Candace Owens and others said Tyler Robinson wasn't even on the campus that day. They said, I don't think he was even on campus in Provo that day. There's security footage all over the campus placing him there. It goes on and on and on like this. And basically what happens at this point is you have to believe that all the evidence that has been presented is all fake. The bullet fragments, fake, not real. So the medical examiner's in on it, the surgeon's in on it, the hospital's in on it. You got to believe the security footage is all fake. They're either body doubles or lookalikes, decoys, or the footage itself has been altered.
Get out of here, faggot.
So the decoys are in on it, and or the state has just manufactured the security camera, which would also involve campus security too. Campus security surely at that point would say, that's not real footage from our cameras. They never requested it or something. So the campus security's in on it. It goes on and on and on like this. His parents are in on it. Lance Twiggs is in on it. The decoys are in on it. Campus security's in on it. The medical examiner's in on it. Erica Kirk is in on it. Jack Posobiec's in on it. Andrew Colvin, Blake Ness, Israel, France, Egypt, Trump, Kash Patel, Utah Public Safety Commission, the defense's attorney, or I should say the defendant's attorney, Tyler Robinson's defense, because why is he not cross-examining the witnesses? Why is he not challenging the evidence? He must be in on it too. The local PD and the FBI. In order to persist in this idea that there is some conspiracy, you would have to dismiss, for basically no reason, all the real evidence which has been admitted in court and not challenged by the defense, all the forensic, physical,
hell no. Oh, hell no.
Evidence,
what the fuck?
the confessions, the testimony. You would have to disregard all of it. Dismiss all of it based on nothing. They're all liars. They're all decoys. They're all in on it. It's all fake. It's all forgeries.
This is bullshit. What now? Keep going, Nikki.
And you would have to presume that every conspiracy has evidence that just has not been found yet. The involvement of Israel, the involvement of Egypt, the involvement of France, corruption in the FBI, corruption at the university, Utah Public Safety Commission, Trump administration, Turning Point itself, Tyler Robinson's family, Lance Twiggs. You'd have to believe that you would have to basically assume that there is evidence that all of these people are involved in this grand conspiracy, and we have to assume their motivation, and we have to assume that there's evidence for this, but it either just hasn't been found yet, and it's forthcoming, or they're so effective at it that they've killed all the whistleblowers and destroyed all the evidence. And there's a word for this. It's just not rational. It's just not rational. It's just not believable. People say, really? You believe the government narrative? Really? You want us to believe this? I don't know. They have the gun. They have the murder weapon. They recovered the bullet fragments. They have video of him on campus. They've got a written confession, a text confession, testimony from the girlfriend. He turned himself in. The parents turned him in. They interrogated him. There's no other suspects right now. No other suspects in custody. There's no good evidence that anybody else did it. All this talk about decoys and people in maroon shirts. And there's no one else we could point to that actually did the killing. No one we could point to behind the scenes that groomed Tyler Robinson or backed him in some way or had foreknowledge of it. There's no evidence of that.
Come get whooped.
And so, look,
wow.
I believe that there are conspiracies. What is it? What is a conspiracy? What does it mean to conspire? It means to plot in secret for some sort of concealed agenda. This happens all the time. It happens all the time at a low level, at a high level. Powerful people do it. Poor people do it. Everybody conspires. And I believe there are some high-profile conspiracies going on. But we have to be guided by the evidence to believe them. Okay, we live in reality. We share reality. And everything that happens leaves a trace.
Bro, this is impossible.
A money trail.
Already tried this once.
Increasingly, because of mass surveillance, there's video or audio recordings, there's testimony. We have to be guided by the facts that we can observe in reality, that
hey, hit that like and subscribe for me.
We can judge and verify. And I said from the beginning, as it concerns this conspiracy, all the evidence is pointing in one direction, towards Tyler Robinson.
Yeah, Super Saiyan now.
But for one reason or another, for ideological reasons, people just simply don't want to, they're not comfortable with the conclusion. So rather than be guided by the facts to a conclusion, irrespective of what it is, neutral and unbiased, and not colored by any kind of ideological or political lens, rather than starting with the facts and going where they lead and accepting the conclusion no matter what, people start with the conclusion. Which is, I've predetermined that there's a conspiracy. I predetermined the motive. I predetermined the culprit. And whatever facts suit my theory, those are the ones I'm going to go with. I'll go with these open-ended questions, presuming there's evidence yet to be found, presuming we'll find something, seeing patterns where there are none, rather than go with the actual facts, which I will dismiss, the ones that are inconvenient. And the best example of this, I saw this happen today with Ian Carroll. Ian Carroll, who claims to be a journalist, isn't a journalist supposed to be concerned with reporting the facts? That's what a journalist does. They go on the scene and they see and hear with their own eyes and ears what's happening, and then they report it to the people. Well, Ian Carroll said that he looked at the bullet fragments and said, this resembles
sorry about that, I had blown my nose.
A Full Metal Jacket. Ha! It's laughable, the idea that Tyler Robinson shot a new bullet, Full Metal Jacket, and it didn't leave an exit wound on Charlie Kirk. It's ridiculous. And people pointed out, they said, no, that looks like a soft
Can't give me when I'm under
round.
Can't give me when I'm under
And they said, so actually, it's not Full Metal Jacket. It doesn't have the same penetrating power.
I got a penetrating power right here.
They said, that looks like something completely different than what you said it was.
Yeah,
it actually doesn't resemble that at all, and you don't know what you're talking
like and
about.
Subscribe.
You're not a
ballistic
ballistics expert. That's not at all what that looks like. As a matter of fact, it looks like something else.
Shut up for a second. This is the dopest shit ever. I didn't know you could just do this on your phone and connect it to OBS. OBS is the shit. Hit that like and subscribe. Fucking help me. What are you doing? Hit it. Hit the like. I'm just playing. I love you.
And produces a completely different effect. And you know what Ian Carroll said? Did he say, oh, you're right, I made a mistake? Did he say, I'm sorry, I'm not a ballistics expert, I misjudged this? You're right, tell me more, I need to do more research. No, didn't even skip a beat. Without missing a beat, he jumped in the replies and said, correction, actually it's a soft point round, but this just even makes my case stronger. He goes, actually, this makes my case even stronger. All the more reason why this kind of bullet wouldn't have produced that effect. And it just goes to show, it doesn't matter if it was a bullet or there's no bullet at all. If it was a Full Metal Jacket or a soft point, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's one way or the other way. It always points in the same direction. Anyone who disagrees is a part of the conspiracy. If I debunk Your claims? Why am I so interested in debunking you? It's because I'm part of the conspiracy. And I said this early on. This is evidence that the people involved are not interested in the truth.
I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. We'll see what happens.
If no matter what the facts say, it always is going in the same direction, whether it's blue or red, whether it's right or left, that just proves my predetermined narrative. That just goes to show you have already made a decision about what the conclusion is, and you're not really interested in the facts. You'll find a way to make it suit. Whatever happened, by the way, to those Egyptian planes? Candace Owens did 28 shows last year saying that Egyptian military aircraft were following Charlie Kirk around in dozens of locations, producing an unignorable coincidence. Some citizen journalist bought the same flight tracking data that Candace Owens used, and he determined she simply misread the data. And that in almost every single case where Candace Owens said a military Egyptian aircraft was at the same airport as Charlie Kirk's plane, not only was that plane not where she said it was on another continent. But was there ever a correction? Candace Owens promised one. She said she was going to produce a website with an interactive data set where people could go on the website and look at where the Egyptian planes overlap with the turning point planes. It never happened. She never produced this interactive resource. As a matter of fact, she just simply never talked about it again. Never brought it up. She didn't admit she was wrong and issue a correction and say that was clearly a red herring, a false lead, the data was false. She also didn't produce this interactive resource which would prove that what she was saying was right. She simply stopped talking about it and moved on to something else. Where's the integrity in that? Where's the transparency? Where's the honesty? Where's the responsibility as a journalist to admit you were wrong? And by the way, that's not like that was one among other things. She said the Egyptian military planes are the key to everything. She said, I can feel it. She said, God told me that. She said, it's a God thing. God told me that the Egyptian military planes are the key to blowing this whole conspiracy wide open. She misread the data. It was wrong. She never produced the interactive resource. We never heard about it again. So they went on to the next thing, this 30-06 bullet. That's the thing they hung their hat on. They said it's impossible for a 30-06 round to go through somebody like that and not have an exit wound and not exit the body. They said that's absolutely impossible. It could simply never happen. They hung their hat on this one. And it turns out they recovered the bullet fragments. That's exactly the type of bullet it was. Coming from the rifle belonging to Tyler Robinson, which they found in the field, which he discarded, which he talked about over text with his lover, which they pulled from the phone using Celebrite. Did that stop them? No, they went on to something else. They said, well, why did they repave the area where Charlie Kirk was killed? I know. It's because the chemical compound used in the explosives hidden in Charlie Kirk's lav mic would have binded with the rain chemically and then been impossible to cover up. So the reason that they paved over a bloody crime scene where somebody was murdered was not because they basically knew that he was shot from over there, so why do they need to keep all this blood-soaked soil in the middle of a university campus when people are going to classes? They said, well, there's only one reason why they would pave over it. It's to conceal the explosive that was used. Okay, well, we found the bullet. No explosive, it was a bullet. She said Tyler Robinson was never on campus. We have security camera footage of him 5 times. He visited the university 5 times leading up to it. She said he was somebody that debates. I couldn't go and field any question from any college student at 200 events in a year. That's like a superhuman ability. Guy had it going on, okay? Horrific thing, but let's just be clear about who he was and what he represented. He was at the cross-section of the GOP base, which is increasingly these young white men on the campuses who increasingly are Israel critical. But he also sat between them and the donors. The donors, the big donors and the small donors, the middle-sized donors who are from a different generation. It's boomers, secular boomers, Protestant boomers, and a lot of Jews. And so he sat at the cross.
I don't know if my shit cut out or not, but if it did, I apologize. I'm back now.
Crossroads at a fateful inflection point in history where the boomers are very pro-Israel, the donors are very pro-Israel, the institutions, the establishment is going one way, and the young people, who it was his job to corral into the GOP and organize and get them involved, they were going very anti-Israel. So why is there this contention? Why is it controversial? Was he on the side of Israel in the pocket? Was he turning against them? Well, I think the picture is a reflection of the moment and the position that he was in, which is that as a Turning Point leader, as the Turning Point founder, as the guy whose job it was to speak to the younger generation, and he did it every day on TikTok, on the campuses, he realized the extent to which Israel was falling from grace and losing popularity. He saw firsthand how unpopular it was becoming with the young people. He saw firsthand how attitudes were changing about Israel, and he knew there was a problem. He knew that was a problem for Israel. He knew it was a problem for the
I know there's a problem here.
GOP, and increasingly it was becoming a very acute problem for him, because the more that he defended Israel, the more it hurt his credibility. If your job is to get the young people involved and excited and organized, and they all hate Israel, and your job is to go and defend Israel, it's going to create a lot of friction. And I believe he was unhappy that he was put in that position. And that was reflected in the letter he sent to Netanyahu. He said, listen, man, I can't do all the work. I'm holding down the fort defending Israel, but you got to meet me halfway and help me. Because these are losing arguments, and my job is to win arguments. These young people are not convinced, they don't like you, and the more I defend you, the more they don't like me. Help me help you. That was his message to Netanyahu. I think that was his message at Turning Point SAS in July of 2025, when he had Tucker talk about Epstein and he had the debate between Dave Smith and Josh Hammer. And I think that is what he conveyed even in those private Telegram messages. But he was also on the side of the donors in the sense that Turning Point was a very rich organization, deeply connected to the Trump administration, and we know how much juice, we know how much power the Zionists have. So he also couldn't really upset them either. He couldn't completely alienate those guys at the same time. And I think this is where this perception comes from, that he was about to have this ideological epiphany and he was going to go against Israel. I think it represented a frustration that he was being torn in two. He had to be bipolar because he would speak to the donors and he'd speak to the young people, and the donors wanted one thing and the young people wanted something very differently. And I think it was out of frustration that he was saying, I can't please everybody here. And I think that's why there was this appearance of a flipping or something like that. But these two competing theories that he was killed to prevent Tucker Carlson from entering Turning Point is belied by the fact that after Charlie Kirk's assassination, his successor, Erica Kirk, maintains a friendship with Tucker. So if Erica and Netanyahu conspired to kill Charlie to keep Tucker out of Turning Point because he's Israel critical, well, then how does that explain Erica Kirk being friends with Tucker now? And how does that explain Tucker Carlson speaking at not one but two Turning Point events in the 3 months after Charlie was assassinated? It doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. And then the latest and greatest argument that I've heard is they say, well, Charlie Kirk had to be eliminated because he was against the war in Iran. He told Joe Kent, keep us out of the war. And he was against the war in Iran, and he would have single-handedly prevented it. But this doesn't even pass the smell test. Let's talk about, in the first place, we had already gone to war against Iran in 2025. In June of 2025, Israel went to war with Iran. Trump joined Israel in their war with Iran. And perhaps Charlie Kirk advised against it in private, but in public, he defended every action. Every action. When Trump came out and said, I'm in favor of regime change, Charlie Kirk came out and said, I support the president. I'm not in favor of a top-down regime change, but if the bottom-up revolution happens backed by the United States, I'm all for it. How about the Epstein files? When Trump said no one should talk about the files anymore, Charlie Kirk came out and said, I trust my president. If he says there's nothing in the files, let's stop talking about it. That was June and July of 2025. So it's been tested. When Trump took us to war in Iran, Charlie Kirk was unable to convince him not to join the war. And after he failed at convincing Trump not to join the war, he defended Trump's conduct in the war. And when Trump buried the Epstein files with the DOJ, Charlie Kirk dutifully went on Twitter supporting his president and said, we shouldn't talk about the files. I trust Trump handling this. We saw it. So we're supposed to believe that that guy was going to be the one who would single-handedly stand in the way of a U.S.-Iran war in February of this year? What would make you think that, based on the record of history? But go further. You're the sitting president of the United States of America. You've got a vice president who won the election with you, a secretary of state that you nominated and confirmed by your Senate, a secretary of defense who oversees the Pentagon, a national security advisor who receives intelligence from the Pentagon and from the National Security Council. You got a director of national intelligence at that time, Tulsi Gabbard. You have counterterrorism, Joe Kent. You got your son, Don Jr. You've got your other advisors, your chief of staff, Susie Wiles, Stephen Chung, all these people surrounding you. Not one of them could convince him not to go to war. Not the politicals, not the military people, the generals, not the cabinet picks, not the advisors. Nobody in February could convince him not to go to war. Not even his own military. His own military was in Politico and the Washington Post saying to the press, there's no way we're going to get regime change and they're going to close the strait. And we've since heard that the military told him privately they're going to close the strait and we're not going to knock out their government. So he didn't listen to Vice President Vance. He didn't listen to his son, Don Jr. He didn't listen to his DNI, Tulsi Gabbard. He didn't listen to Joe Kent. He didn't listen to Tucker Carlson, who went to the White House 3 times in the buildup to the war, and each time told the president it's a mistake. And Tucker relates that Trump told him, I know it's going to be a mistake. He wouldn't even listen to his own generals. But we're to believe that had Charlie Kirk lived, not only would he aggressively confront the president or maybe go public, but that he would be the deciding vote, the 31-year-old head of Turning Point USA. None of those other people Israel was worried about. Israel wasn't worried about Pete Hegseth. They weren't worried about Central Command. They weren't worried about the DNI, the ODNI. They weren't worried about any of that. They weren't worried about Vance. They weren't worried about Tucker. They weren't worried about any of that. They were worried about Charlie Kirk, who failed to stop the first one, who was with Trump in burying the files, who is an ally of Israel staunchly and has been for a decade. It just doesn't even make any fucking sense, and it never did. People grasping at straws, wanted it to be true, tried to force it, no matter how ridiculous, how illogical. And that's really what this was from the beginning. Ad hoc trying to shoehorn that into the blame Israel heuristic. And you know me. I am no stranger to blaming Israel.
Man, no!
Let's be guided by the facts. Larry Ellison acquiring TikTok. That's a Jewish conspiracy. All day. Larry Ellison's son, David, putting Barry Weiss in charge of CNN and CBS. Jewish conspiracy all day long. Department of Education holding all the Ivy Leagues hostage, forcing their Middle East Studies department to have a pro-Israel curriculum for admissions and for the actual teaching. That's a Jewish conspiracy all day. DHS and State Department reviewing 50,000 visa holders and their social media to see if they criticized Israel. Jewish conspiracy. Okay, there's a lot of Jewish conspiracies. AIPAC pouring $100 million in 24. Israel lobby pouring $20 million in Thomas Massey's primary. AIPAC continuing to go after Cori Bush this year. I mean, it goes on and on and on. These are all real. Even, let's say, Trump going to war with Iran in the first place and Israel sabotaging the peace deal. I mean, there's no shortage of these conspiracies, and they're all factual. They're all fact-based. You can look it up. You can make a very persuasive, overwhelming, compelling case. Let's stick with the facts instead of trying to fit some preconceived notion, some presupposition, some ad hoc theory, dismissing the real facts, desperately hoping that facts that don't exist are going to show up somewhere. And I'll tell you what, if we can't do that as a movement, then we will lose. People might say, because then the next thing they say is, well, why do you care so much? You really want us to believe the government narrative. It's always something like this. I'll answer that question. Why do I feel so strongly about this? Why do I care? Well, one, the truth matters, okay? That's why I'm involved in this, because that's why I got involved in the beginning. Isn't that why we all got involved? We realized we were being lied to. We realized we weren't being told the whole truth. We were led by an honest inquiry into what is really going on in our country. So the truth matters to me. It matters that we get it right. That's why I do this. That's why I investigate these things. The truth is also our greatest weapon. Unlike Larry Ellison and the rest of them, we don't have billions of dollars. We don't have multi-million dollar studios. Unlike Ben Shapiro, we don't get a bailout if we get banned on Twitter, if we don't make money, if we get unpopular. The truth is the only thing that gives us an advantage because it's persuasive, because it's logical, because people have a rational faculty. They can hear the arguments, they can discern, and they're not always going to listen to the billion-dollar funded media empire if it doesn't make sense, if it's not based in reality, if it's not based upon the facts. So it's our greatest weapon. But more than that, I want to change the world. I want to win. And the second that we give up on the truth, we're going to start to lose the argument. We're going to lose credibility, the only thing that we have, and we're going to lose to these other people. Because you know what? Every time that we are wrong, it's a slam dunk to the far more well-funded, far more sophisticated, credentialed legacy media. We can't get away with getting things wrong like they do. All we have is our credibility. All we have is the people that watch us, and I'm speaking as a live streamer, as a journalist, an opinion maker, whatever. All people like myself have is our credibility, our record. Why do people search me out? Because they want to hear what I have to say, because
What y'all know about PlayStation Hot Pursuit?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And they know that I've been right about a lot of things. If I don't have that, there's a million podcasts to choose from that are easier to access because they're on Spotify and they're on YouTube and they have better production value and they're always going to be around because they're always being funded by advertisers and by Larry Ellison and, whatever. All we have is our credibility. They can get it wrong all day long. They're still going to be sponsored by Ford. They're still going to be sponsored by Pfizer and the U.S. military and NATO and whatever. So when we are wrong, the audience starts to run for the exit and they say, you know what? Maybe those people at the New York Times, maybe they were right. Maybe they are the experts. I guess you can't really blame the Jews for everything. Yeah, that one jumped the shark. That one went too crazy. We cannot have any unforced errors like this. We can't wound ourselves like this. We have to be guided by the facts. We can't go wrong that way. And, if other facts materialize, let's say even in this case, let's say we all learn something down the line which unequivocally points to some conspiracy. Well, then at least we can say, well, we didn't have that fact when we made the judgment. But if we put the cart before the horse and we want to force everything to fit a heuristic, force everything to fit this worldview, pretty soon people are going to recognize every question has the same answer and they're going to tune out. If every question has the same answer, which is it's Jews, it's Israel, it's Jews, it's Israel, then people realize you're an ideologue. You're not a truth teller. You're not interested in that. You're an ideologue where every question has the same answer, and the same answer is very simple and very plain. And people say, that's not the way the world works. The world's a complicated place. It's nuanced. There has to be room for uncertainty and randomness and chaos. There has to be room for that human dimension. And if your worldview is not able to handle that, then it's probably not satisfying. So it looks like, and again, we're not all the way there yet. This preliminary hearing isn't even over, and then there's going to be a trial. We still don't even know how Tyler Robinson pleads. But from where we're sitting, the evidence up to this point, and we haven't even seen all of it, looks pretty overwhelming. And I really think it's time for the people that participated in this conspiracy to just, I saw Megyn Kelly say it, put up or shut up. I see people, the evidence is coming out day after day. The trial is being live cast to the media. Journalists are reporting the play-by-play. And I see, rather than taking the new evidence, reviewing it, digesting it, processing it, I see people like Candace Owens and Ian Carroll and Stu Peters, they're just racing out there minute by minute to dismiss every new piece of evidence. Oh, that can't possibly be real. Oh, well, that's obviously fake. Well, that's a body double. That's a decoy. Is that what a good journalist does? As somebody who's objective, is that what you do? You have spent the better part of the past year inventing theories and speculating and hoping that, something is going to be uncovered here. Finally, we're getting new evidence, and you can't hand wave it away fast enough with nonsense.
What the fuck?
Body doubles, decoys. What about that? Why isn't his face clear? Well, what? Why do they have screenshots? And equally as fast, people are pointing out, no, the evidence is legit. Lance Twiggs had the text messages from Tyler Robinson. In court, they admitted photos of the phone with the text messages up. I see the conspiracy theorists come out and say, well, why don't we actually have the data? Why don't we have the data? Why'd they take a picture of the phone? Hey, dummy. They pulled the data from the phone. They have it. They got Lance Twiggs' phone. They took the screenshots, and they downloaded the data. They have it. Oh, well, the company that created the software that pulls the data is run by Israel. Oh, okay. So every piece of, they're immediately going to hand wave it away, dismiss it. I would call on the people that invented the conspiracies. Humble yourself. This is not about anyone being right or being wrong. It's not about where the conclusion winds up. It's about the evidence. Look at the evidence, evaluate it, process it, and if you can debunk it, if you can thoroughly debunk it, if you have alternative pieces of evidence that we haven't seen or heard about, if you have information that shows that the evidence presented is false, good evidence that it's false, something real, then present it. Otherwise, you gotta just admit you were wrong so that we can move on. And that's what I have to say on the issue. So I said I wasn't going to wade into this one because it was so controversial last year, but somebody needs to step up and say it for the sake of everybody involved. I also think, not to mention, this is the last thing I'll say about it, then we'll move on. I think we're going to look at super chats. The last thing I'm going to say about it is, if Erica Kirk is innocent, and I think she is, by the way. I don't think she killed her husband at all. I don't believe that even for a second. Then look at what people have done to this woman. And listen, when Erica Kirk took over Turning Point, I said, I don't know if I love that idea because I'm really just not in favor of women having leadership roles in politics. I think it's contrary to these traditional gender roles that Turning Point itself promoted. I said, so I don't think in a political role that she's above scrutiny. But it's gone well above and beyond that. I mean, it really has. If this is a person who just saw her husband get executed in public on video, and her children heard about it too, and she's been having to cope with this, and she's just being piled on, everyone making fun of her, accusing her of killing her husband, eventually it just becomes malicious. If Tyler Robinson is the killer, and it wasn't some Egyptian, French, Israeli, American, FBI, Frankist, Erica Kirk conspiracy, then people owe this woman an apology. I mean, seriously. Because there is a human cost.
Yeah, there's.
All these people that have had their names dragged through the mud, all these people that really just never got a fair hearing. And because they didn't explain themselves perfectly, because they denied it, they're really put in an impossible situation where either they admit they're guilty, but if they deny it, they look guilty. And like I said, I'm not even, look, I have my beef with Turning Point. I don't even really like a lot of those people, to be honest with you. Andrew Colvett, I mean, he's from Salem Media. He's like a Christian Zionist. I'm not the guy's biggest fan. And Erica Kirk, I mean, I can't imagine she likes me. Me and her husband had beef for a long time. And, you know, so the list goes on. And I don't like Jack Posobiec. I don't like a lot of these guys. But it's like, you know what? If Tyler Robinson is a trigger man, there's also a human cost to all this. And I'll go further. The other way this is irresponsible is if we've identified that Tyler Robinson is the killer, then this actually fits into a completely different pattern, which is not Israel's responsible for everything under the sun, but it's that we do have a left-wing violence problem.
Get out the way.
That affects me. That affects you. That affects all of us. And it's there. The healthcare CEO, was killed by Luigi Mangione.
No!
Donald Trump was shot. There were 2 other assassins that tried to kill Trump. Someone tried to kill Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. You have left-wing terrorists trying to assassinate ICE agents and blow up ICE facilities. You have cabinet members of this government, who, again, I don't even like, and I think they're corrupt, but they live on military bases. Stephen Miller and his wife, Kirsty Noem, they lived on military bases because they fear the left is trying to kill them, and I'm sure they are. That's real. That's a real threat. That's a real danger. And we all know that the left is real. Okay, these people live among us. You know them. They're your coworkers. They're your neighbors. They're people in Portland, Oregon. They're people in Chicago, Illinois. They're people in New York. And these are people that a lot of them will want to kill you and might actually kill you if they think you're a Nazi.
That's insane.
And they think you're a Nazi if you voted for Trump, or they think you're a Nazi if you don't believe trans kids are real or something. And there are a lot of mentally ill people in that category, and they are clearly emboldened. How many school shootings committed by trannies? How many of these high-level assassinations committed by left-wing people against right-wing targets? How many right-wingers are spending a fortune on security because they anticipate something like this will happen? And so what we lost because of the conspiracy theory was a real opportunity to actually try to combat this problem. The day after Charlie Kirk was killed, there would have been a real mandate for the FBI and for this administration to crack down on the DSA, on Antifa, on the radical left, to try to protect people like me and everybody else, literally everybody on the right wing, even the people you like. People you don't like, people you like, everybody.
Hey, if I get this first place for a night, I hit subscribe.
But that is squandered because now most people believe that Charlie Kirk was killed by every foreign government in the world. And there's body doubles and magic and psychic abilities involved and so on. That's the other political cost. And this is why I said after Charlie Kirk was killed, the anti-Semitism thing, it really went past, I think, the sustainable limit. And it entered bubble territory, and this has real-world consequences. You see how far it has gone, where now people say that's the only issue that matters. There is no right and left. Right and left is an artificial divide. They start to say that ICE deporting people is Zionist. Really? It's Zionists who want to deport illegal immigrants? How does that even make any fucking sense? Antifa shows up to prevent ICE from deporting illegals. A couple of them get popped. The Zionists are behind this. What is it? These are the worst people in the world. These are anarchists. They show up and vandalize property.
I don't know if you guys ever played this game before, but if you go down here to options, and you go to, I believe, username, and you type in spoiled, you unlock everything. Whoops. Now everything's unlocked. Watch this. Every map. Every car is unlocked. Look at that. The El Nino's unlocked. You don't even got this bitch in the motherfucking regular game.
They try to fight the
You gotta unlock this bitch with a cheat code.
police deporting illegals that are stealing taxpayer money. These are bums. These are scumbags. They're people that smoke pot all day and make graffiti. And they're dream.
This car is way too fucking fast for this game right here. For anybody else in this game.
Is to see the city burn. That's all they want.
And I picked the worst.
It's good that those people get popped if they try to interfere and put law enforcement in danger as they carry out their duty. But that is how far it has gone. Left-wingers are trying to assassinate right-wing politicians.
Out.
People say, no, that doesn't exist. It's Israel. It's always Israel. Really? Was Luigi Mangione Israel? That's a left-winger killing a greedy capitalist. How about that left-winger that set the fires in the Palisades and destroyed all those beautiful homes?
No chance.
Was that guy Israel? That's another resentful left-winger. And the list goes on and on and on like this. So this is where it's a time for clarity. This is a time for clarity. This is a wake-up call. Let's get our heads back in the game here. Can we please? Israel's responsible for a lot of things, bringing us to war in Iran, consolidating control over the media to propagandize the next generation, consolidating their control over higher education to control these elite gatekeeping institutions, consolidating their control even over Wall Street and over venture capital. These guys like Bill Ackman, Larry Fink on the East Coast, Jacob McGuire, Joe Lonsdale on the left coast, on the West Coast. That's real.
Left coast.
But it's also a problem that these DSA left-wing liberal types want to kill the rich, kill Republicans. They want to take over the states and city councils and take all the money from white people and give it to transgender illegals. They want to abolish ICE, open the prisons, open the borders. They're our enemy too. That's a problem too. And so this is another call for us to become who and what we are. Take your own side. Be what you are. And what we are American Christian nationalists. I'm a Christian American nationalist. I want the Jewish oligarchy and the Israel lobby out. I want the borders closed. I want the illegals deported. I want our American identity to be preserved. I want all the corruption out. I don't want America Last Muslims wiping their dirty hands on our flag. I don't want Jewish oligarchs that spit on Christians sending us to die in their wars. That's the middle path. So no more of this fusionist bullshit where we ignore the problems with the left. No more of this kookery. That's what it is, kookery, talking about aliens and magical powers and giants. That is a distraction.
That's your religion.
Let's get back to who and what we are. Greeks, Romans, Europeans, Christians, Americans. This is our heritage. This is our identity. This is our country. This is